Hello Saxo fans, episode 66, Happy New Year to you. If you're watching this, I don't know when this is going to come out, I'm filming this, the start of this at least, in that funny time between Christmas and New Year. Lots of little bits and bobs to be getting on with, and yeah, I don't know when this is going to come out, so apologies if there's loads of continuity errors and all that kind of stuff, but we've got lots of little things to do, big old list on the board. But first thing I need to show you is obviously the garage update. We now have shelves and workspace, so we can be creative again rather than having to work on the floor. But obviously we are going to crack on with some Saxo bits today, and the first thing we're going to do is move the battery. Let me show you why. Okay, welcome to the interior. Sorry this shot might be a bit poor, but my battery is just down there, and it's a little lithium ion JWM battery, very expensive, but really puts out enough power for this car. The only problem is it's so difficult to get to. It doesn't occasionally need a bit of a charge. Sometimes I'll leave something on by mistake and flatten it. And I do trickle charge it as well. But sometimes just getting to it's a real pain. So I'm going to move it into the back just so it's a little bit more accessible. So we'll whip that out. It's just down there. And we'll extend the cable and we'll stick it back here. So let's just get that one done first. It's going to be almost impossible for me to film that in there. So I'll just take it out and I'll show you what the bracket looks like and I'll show you the battery and all that. Right, so this is the battery that I run. It's a Jack Webb Motorsport JWM battery, 12 amp hour capacity, 450 cold cranking amps. Jobs are good and got a built-in voltage gauge. Quite expensive little thing, but it weighs 1.5 kilos, I think, which is ultra light for a battery. But it's not let me down, it's been really good. So we just need to put it a bit further back in the car so it's a bit more accessible. So let's have a quick look where we're going to put it. Okay, in here with some light then. So the obvious place is tucked away just down there somewhere, I think. So all we've got to do is make a couple of strategic holes and we'll get it bolted up. Pretty straightforward. And then luckily I have got a fuse that was right down by the battery, so I've essentially got to add, what, about 500 mil of cable. I'll keep the fuse where it was, I think. But yeah, that should do the trick. And then we've got to find an earth point. Got an earth up here, but that's got a few bits and bobs on it already, so I'll find a new one. I know there's a bolt here I could use. I think there's one there as well, so I might just go to there. We'll figure that out. So let's sort some mounts for this and get it bolted in. Right, debate now then. Do I riv nut them or just nut and bolt them? I'll think about that for a second. Change of plan. I'm going to attempt to rivet these in. I'll just try not to have massive holes in the car where I can help it. If I can have a small rivet hole, I'd rather do that than a really big hole for something that might change in the future. So the only downside of this is if I want to change the battery, I'll have to drill these out. But obviously rivets are aluminium and drillable. So, and I have about 1,000 of these in a box because they don't sell them in a pack of 10. They sell them in a pack of like 150. But anyway, we'll get these in and we'll sort the wiring out. Right, forgive the shocking editing, my rivet gun just decided to need a full rebuild. Now complete. If you're wondering, I have put some rust protection on the holes that I've drilled, done all that. So it should be alright from the elements. Not that this car ever sees any rain. Right, with the battery all in place, I have extended, or rerouted rather, the power supply here for the swell puck, which came from the little relay that's just down there. Essentially it was routed down to the battery, and I just sort of twisted it around and put it back up here. Actually had to shorten it a little bit, so that's nice and tidy. The earth cable, this is the old one, it needs a bit tidying up, but what I'm going to do is shorten this right down, obviously from the earth, and I'm going to use the seat mount position there. I've just cleaned it all up, hence all the rubbish there that's come off, just cleaned all the paint off. So that's a nice good thread to put that to, so a nice short earth. The only thing I need to do is order a bit of cable for the power supply, which is that red one down there, obviously up to here. So we'll come back to that. Yeah, nice and easy then. So let me just cut this earth, get that in. I've got a load of, I bought a big old kit of these connectors, but I don't have the crimping tool for them. So what I end up doing is just bunging a load of solder in there and soldering up. So I'll do that now and make the earth cable. There we go then. One connection, really solid. You're not pulling that out. Jobs are good. And like I say, it's definitely not the best way of doing it. One of those sort of electronic crimping tools would be the best solution, but I haven't got one of those, so that'll do. Right, we'll get this in and then we'll cut it to length. There we go then, one nice short earth cable. So we'll just get it fitted loosely on for now, because no doubt it's going to be in the way when I put the power cable in. So we'll just get it in place roughly. That's when you realise you haven't made it long enough. There we go, she's all good. Right, so just the red one down there to extend. We'll come back to that when the cable has arrived. Okay, 24 hours later, overnight delivery, parts from Japan, and we have the power lead done. So that's all nice, hooked up tight. Just need to sort out routing that and clamping it down somewhere so it doesn't flap about. But for now, we have power back to the car. Right, with that done, on to the next job. Right, before we move on to the next job, which to be honest I've been putting off doing, I don't want to do it. I mean, it's not actually going to cost me anything to do it, but it's just so much work, and I'll tell you about that in a sec. But I thought I'd just show you around the new garage setup. So if you remember before, I had like loads of racking. In fact, all of this racking, I had like 5 of these all around this corner, but now I've sort of chucked in some essentially a workspace so I can actually do things in here. My toolbox before, so that can slide in and out, so I can still move that around if I need to. Obviously got all my sort of bits of kit and stuff plugged in now. Plenty of workspace obviously. Got my welding table on some sliders under here. There we go, so that comes out. Obviously tucks away nicely. And obviously my welder on a little shelf just next to it. So it's all just really accessible, and then I move a little move around. My press and my parts wash. Now all accessible, I can actually get to everything. Yeah, so we're basically in here. We're ready to really attack some stuff and do some things. Space is obviously always a premium. Doesn't help that I bought another motorbike as well. But yeah, we're basically all good to go. And obviously I've got my Citroen dealer flag up as well. So let's have a look at what we're going to do next. What we're going to be doing next is fixing a small leak from my heater matrix. It's really random. I can't predict it. It doesn't leak a lot. It's sort of 10p size. Every now and again on the passenger footwell down here. Yeah, whether the car's been running or not, it's sort of, yeah, it's really random. I cannot predict when it happens. I mean, the car's been sitting for 5 weeks now, 6 weeks, and it hasn't leaked. But, you know, I'll move the car and then tomorrow it'll leak for some reason. Anyway, so we'll take the dash out and sort out the heater matrix, hoses, or the radiator itself, whatever it is that's leaking, we'll sort that out. But obviously taking the dash out is not a quick and easy job. Obviously for me it's seats out, hopefully just the front half of the cage, bunch that back, and then obviously all the dash stuff can come out with it. So we'll do that. I'm going to take the opportunity to retrim the dash. I've got this really nice material, sort of Alcantara-y material on this little panel and obviously on the door cards, front and rear. So it'd be nice to make the dash match. So we'll sort that out as well. And the final job is tidy some of the electrics behind the scenes here, because it's not a rat's nest, but it does need a bit of improvement. But most importantly is make these 3 switches here more accessible. So fuel cut-off, map switch and battery cut-off need to move over, because when I'm strapped into my seat, can't reach them. Well, I can, but it's just a proper stretch. So they need to be more accessible, and the gauges need to be, yeah, they're not so accessible, because, I mean, when you're on it, when you're giving it the beans, you're absolutely not looking at a gauge at all. So maybe these can move over here and this stuff can move in the middle. And then I'm probably going to tidy up something in here as well, because I only really need the hazard switch here. The rest of it is yeah, null and void really. Maybe I'll put my map switch where the Siggy lighter is, because I don't use that either. Anyway, there's some ideas. So there's obviously lots and lots of work to do here, and that's going to be the vast majority of what we're getting up to. There's no substitute for just rolling the car outside and whipping the seats out. It's just a bit more room outside, a bit tight in the garage to the wall. So yeah, let's get on with it, shall we? Right, I was going to put the car outside, but I've just jigged the bikes around a little bit and it's gone dark. It's also 0 degrees in the garage right now, in real money, not Fahrenheit. So I'm just going to do this side in here. But the big bonus is, because I've got a set of the bit of self-advertisement coming up here, because I've got a set of the base 63s, it's 4 bolts and the chair comes out in a wanner with the mounts and everything. So, as I said, some self-advertisement. If you wanted a set of these base 63s, drop me a note, I do make them. Clues in the name, they're 63mm lower than if you had a popular alternative that lots of people know. But they mean you sit very, very low, because obviously there are space limited in these things. Just means taking your seat in and out is super easy. I also watched one of my old videos just to see how I put the cage in, and I think I might be able to leave the back of the cage in, just take the front half out, which will reduce the amount of work considerably. Anyway, I'll sort the other side out and then we'll start taking the cage out. Got a bit excited and didn't film it, but all this side of the cage bolts out, it's down off the floor. Took out the door bar, roof bar, obviously all the bolts and everything, and it's unbolted from the floor. So it's just a question now of whether I can wriggle that side out. I suspect I might need to loosen the bolts down here for the rear half. Probably not take it out, just loosen them, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of a play. I won't film it because it's just going to be me struggling. But I'll let you know how we get on, of course. So check this out. I think I've managed to get it out without having to undo it. Yes, indeed. Job is a good one. Front section out. So I've just got to do the other side, obviously. Stick that on there. And then it's on to undoing some of the electrics and all that stuff and just dash bits. That was actually not as painful as I thought it might be. I don't know why I've been putting it off for so long, to be honest. Sometimes I think you just need to get into it, don't you? Anyway, I'll get the other side out and then we can go inside. Right then, cages out was pretty straightforward. So, yeah, this is the bit I'm not looking forward to, taking out all the electronics and stuff like that. So, cue the montage. Let's get the dash out. Right, we're about there. It's all loose and it should just come away now. It's just a question of sort of manhandling it in and out. There we go then, that's the dash on the floor there and everything that came off it, quite a bit of stuff in the end, but it'll go back together all right. The problem I've got now is to remove the pipes from the heater matrix. They are right down there, just below that Jubilee clip, because that Jubilee clip's for the power steering and it's right underneath there. So, I mean, I'm gonna have to sort of drain the coolant anyway, so I might as well do that at some point. And then it's just a case of figuring out how best to get into the actual heater matrix and see where it's leaking from. I'll do a bit of digging. In fact, while I was pulling the dash out, I've obviously provoked a little bit of a leak because we've got a little pull there. That's the sort of leak I get. It's not a lot, but that's what it does sort of once a month. Maybe not even that. Anyway, let's see what we've got to do next. Oh, right, managed to get those clips off. Spent half an hour licking my engine, what felt like it. But yeah, down there, obviously pretty inaccessible, but a combination of some sort of needle nose pliers at various angles throughout the process. And I actually managed to get some proper hose clamp removers on it at the end. So those are off now, so it should technically pull out. Yes, that was a beast to get out, and haven't spilled that much coolant. Get in. Right, let's stick this on the bench and have a look at it. Heater matrix then. So the only part we need is obviously where these two pipes come in and the little insert that goes in here. I'm tempted to say that someone's been in at this before because there's a tab snapped off there and the two bolts are missing. So I think someone's been in here, but anyway, we'll sort it out. We'll get there. Let's take this out and see what it looks like. Right, moment of truth. So this part here was held in with one Phillips self-tapper, so whether that's original or not, who knows, probably not. So it should slide out. There we go. I'm not seeing like any like real mega problems. I think potentially, I'm just being careful not to tip this upside down too much because it's got a bit of coolant in it still. I think, I don't know if you can see this, but there's like some real sort of dried up coolant here on this corner. So, and obviously if that there would have been, yeah, if that's bottom corner, that would have been down. So it wouldn't have run down it from the top, because if it's leaking from this corner, that's already the lowest point. So there probably wouldn't be sort of evidence of coolant on the rest of it. Stick that there for a sec. There we go. And it is wet inside a little bit. Don't know if you'll be able to make that out or not. Probably not, no. And I'm guessing then what was happening, yeah, you can see it here. So it is just a bit wet here where the whole thing sort of comes together. So I think it's leaked internally and then just comes through here. And I guess it's got to get to a point where it's pulled up just enough to leak. But yeah, it's definitely wet in there. So, okay, well that's hopefully mystery solved. Luckily these things are pretty cheap, so obviously you're banging a new one of these back on. I have been sort of tempted to say, shall I just even not bother putting this back in at all? But the whole point of this car is it needs to be usable on the road. despite it having stupid amounts of power and being completely undrivable, it obviously still needs to work as intended. So heating is definitely going back in. Now, I'm not normally one for doing merch and you know, things like stickers, but there were a couple of people online making some cool stuff. So these come from a chap called Alfie Cochran. I think I've said that name right. Yeah, I'll stick a link onto his page, but these are like really nice, sort of like those sort of rubbery key rings. Yeah, good little feature to sort of represent the dealer stickers that you used to get, quite similar. You can get those from Alfie. They're not that expensive, definitely worth getting one. And also a chap called Jack Norris does some dealer stickers as well as some Baguette Bashers stickers. So if you're in the club, then you can get some of these. Now I've got, if you just give me 1 second, one of these on my car already. So I run the coloured version of the sticker and the keyring here. I think this one here is a black and white version. And then of course the Baguette Bashers flag, which I've got on my roll cage. So if you want some of these, I'll stick their links up in a second. And yeah, get yourself some of these. They're only a few quid. Good little additions, nice little features. Right, so before we move some wiring around, which is not super exciting, but it's got to be done. Forgive the background noise, it is absolutely freezing in the garage. I've got my little heater pointing at me. So, centre console, I'm going to get rid of the switch bit at the top there and where you'd have the radio typically. I'm going to cut all that plastic away and have this panel recessed into it. So here I've got a couple of 52mm gauges and of course my AFR gauge. Map switch, voltmeter, which is over here, and fuel pressure, high pressure fuel pump switch for the swell pot. Obviously a switch looks like that, but for now represented by that little washer. So that's roughly how I'm going to lay it out. Obviously it leaves me a little bit of space for something else if I need it, and eventually I think, yeah, this one's EGT, probably the least important of the gauges for daily. I'll swap that one out, put this one somewhere else and swap that one out for a fuel, no, so not fuel pressure, oil pressure, because I don't have oil pressure monitoring at the moment, so I'll sort that out. Yeah, so what I need to do first really is cut all this out so we can get this panel trimmed, final trimmed to shape and then bonded in, and then obviously we can start cutting it all out and trimming it and all that sort of stuff. So let's get this all cut up. Here we go then, trimmed up, roughly the right size. Needs to find a little bit of tidying, but there you go, you sort of get the idea. So now we're roughly about there. I need to cut all the holes for the switches and gauges. Okay, there we go, that way up, job's a good one. Let's pop some gauges in. I won't be able to put them all in and hold them all in together. I've tried to make them, you know, snug fit. My hole saw that I attempted to use was an absolute travesty because it's blunt, and so I had to go with a jigsaw and some filing, but we got there. That's slotted in there. Voltmeter in there, see, that's nice. And then I won't put these in because I won't be able to hold it all, but essentially switch there, and then my map switch will be there. So yeah, let's pop that into the dash just very quickly and see what it looks like. Obviously, it's all very untidy at the moment and needs lots and lots of trimming and everything, tidying up, but you're sort of starting to get the premise of what we're up to here. Right, let's pop this in the dash and see what it looks like. There we go. I think you've got a better idea of what we're trying to achieve here. More accessible, more visual. Jobs are good. And so I do need to find a place for window switches, because as I said before, they were in that, which obviously is now for the bin. Window switches obviously need to go somewhere. I'd like to use the power supply for this to probably put a USB plug in rather than the old fag lighter. And of course, I can't find it. There it is. The hazard button needs to go in somewhere. So yeah, there's obviously a little bit more to do, but oh, and also my fuel cutoff switch now doesn't live anywhere, so I need to find somewhere for that to go. But we'll figure that out. So yeah, I'm not sure what's next. Let me have a think and I'll come back. Next up then. So I thought we'll trim this little panel. Now I will confess I have already trimmed it once before, but I trimmed it the wrong side. So I've got to do it again. Anyway, prepared another panel. And then what we'll do is we'll pop all the gauges in and we'll go back into the car and I'll show you what I've done. So let's get this trimmed up and pop everything in and we'll go in. Right, that's trimmed. Still a bit tacky, so I've got to be careful, but we'll just pop some gauges in. So I always think with trimming it looks worse before it gets better. But obviously I've left the trim big on purpose around the gauges so that it would mean they're nice and tight. So that's the first one in. Second one in. I haven't got the clips for the back of the AFR gauge, so I'll have to find those. But for now, she slots in nice. Yeah. Right, there we go then. I just had to pop the holes in for these, the switch for the map switches in the car, so you'll have to take my word for it. But essentially that's what we're going to end up at. So let's have a quick look at what she looks like in the dash. Obviously you'll have to take my word for it that it's going to come out all right, but essentially, let me move you up, zoom you out. That's the setup, that's what we're going to run. So obviously map switch there. Yeah, looking pretty good. Obviously I've got to fill in these gaps, which I will do, and tidy this whole console up. But yeah, that centerpiece is looking pretty good, and I'll just bond it in somewhere appropriate on the back. Right, anyway, so let's go and show you what I've done in the car to support this side of it. Right, wiring then. So I spent quite a bit of time in here making this a bit tidy and a bit more approachable. So my gauge pod's now all sort of plugged in, and I've got this sort of central loom that feeds it. It's all driven from its own fuse box back here. Yeah, pretty straightforward. And then I've relocated my ECU to here. It's just cable tied at the moment till I make up a little bracket. And then the rest of it's just the original vehicle loom. I've only had to tap into the vehicle loom for a headlight feed and a voltage feed. So that was it. So let's run through this little gauge pod as a little test. So ignition should just turn on the voltmeter. There we go, jobs are good. Turn that off. This switch here does the external fuel pump and AFR gauge. Jobs are good. And then finally the lights should come on with your headlights. Jobs are good. And obviously map switch is the last one. Right, so with that sorted, we can forget about that for a bit. I do just want to show you one thing that I am going to do. It might be controversial. I'll I'll show you that now and then we'll call it a day. Right then, controversial moment. The last thing that we're going to look at is what we're going to do in the car, and that is fit a carpet. Now, fully appreciate that might be a bit controversial because obviously, you know, the car is a track car really, but I've always said that it needs to be usable on the road, comfortable on the road, and I think what makes a road car more comfortable than an out-and-out track car is having a little bit of interior. So my car never came with a carpet when I bought it, so I've sourced this one. Believe it's from a 60,000 mile 106 GTI. Saxo's the same carpet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this carpet in. It obviously needs a little bit of a clean up, which we'll do, and I'm going to look at dyeing this black, or at least a darker grey at least. I haven't sort of figured out colours and stuff yet, but we'll get to that. So yeah, this is going to go in. Obviously, it will need to be trimmed for roll cage in the corners, which is relatively straightforward. Yeah, and then obviously just got to tuck some wiring and things in and around it, which shouldn't be a problem. And that's kind of half the reason why at the very beginning of this episode, I moved the battery, because I didn't want to have to cut, you know, holes in the back of the carpet where I really didn't need to. So yeah, that's basically it. Carpet is going to go in. Right then, next episode, we'll obviously finish getting some of the dashboard back in. We'll hopefully get the dash trimmed and yeah, start building this back up, because we've got a massive job on in the engine bay to do straight after this. So we already know what we're going to do. So yeah, it's not a small job. So I need to get this interior done and dusted, wrapped up, ready for the next thing on the list. Right, anyway, thank you for watching. See you again next time. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. See you again.